Greetings from Zion Health. Today we are going to talk about end-of-life issues and how it affects the individual and their loved ones. I cannot talk about death and dying without giving credit to Dr. Elizabeth Ross, who has written extensively on the subject. Dr. Ross has identified 5 stages of dying. They are 1. Denial, 2. Anger, 3. Bargaining, 4. Depression, and then acceptance. Now, a person doesn't necessarily have to go through the stages in that order. Different people go through it in the different orders. They may go from denial to acceptance, or they may go from denial to bargaining and then go on to acceptance, or they may never get to acceptance. But when you go to the doctor, just for a regular checkup or a physical, life was good and everything was fine. You went to the doctor and now he's telling you you have 6 months to live. That becomes a very hard pill to swallow. So the first thing that hits you is denial. Why me? I don't believe this. I need a second opinion. I need a third opinion. Was it my blood that was drawn? Are you sure you have my results? And these are the things that goes through a person's mind when they're at the stage of denial. Well, the doctor gives you a referral for a second opinion. You go to the second opinion and they tell you the same thing. And then what happens? Anger. You get angry. Why me? I'm a good mother. I'm a good daughter. I've done so many good things in life. Why me? And then you start thinking about everybody else, everywhere else, who is doing something wrong and they're okay. So you stay in that stage of anger and you get angry and get angry. And at this time, some people do get angry at the higher power that they believe in. But you get angry and find out that the anger is really not getting you anywhere. And then people might go into bargaining. They bargain for a little more time. And they say, oh Lord, or whatever power that they pray to, if you can just give me 1 more year, 1 more day, 1 more birthday, 1 more something to celebrate, I'll do ZYX or XYZ. And they bargain and bargain and bargain. And usually they are looking for just a little more time to do something that they need to do. Maybe to see a child graduate, maybe to see their daughter get married, some magical moment that they have been waiting for. And they bargain and bargain. And then nothing happens. Then what happens? They go into depression. And when they get depressed, they don't want to talk to anybody. They might decide to remain in a dark room. They don't see anything in life to be happy about. You might say good morning to them and they wonder what is good about this morning. As caregivers during this time, we need to understand what they're going through. We should not take it personally, because at this time they're going through a journey that they only can go through. It is a lonely journey, so our role is to empathize with them, to be with them through this moment and hear or listen to what they have to say. And they may remain in that stage of depression for a long time, or they may be able to go from that to a point of acceptance. It depends. And the journey and the pathways are very different for, everybody. We don't have a cookie cutter pathway to this. I remember a girlfriend of mine who is a hospice nurse talking about a lady that she was taking care of in one of the area hospice settings. This lady was admitted into a hospice facility, so it was different. She was not in an assisted living being taken care of by hospice. What had happened was she was in there because she had developed gangrene to her toes, and then it had gone through her system. She had gotten septic. and she was very angry at this time. So when my girlfriend met her, she told my girlfriend she was very, very angry. Now, my girlfriend shared the same faith base as she did, so she was able to talk to her. Her point of anger was she believed that God should have healed her from this gangrene. Now, her story was this. When she had the gangrene to her little toe, the doctors had advised her to have it amputated, but she didn't, and she said that God was going to heal her. And the gangrene went up to her legs and went up and went up. Now she's septic, and now she's angry at God. Why me? I stayed and waited for you to heal me. And she was very, very upset. And my girlfriend was not just a nurse, she was also a minister. And she shared the faith with her because they shared the same faith base. But to cut a long story short, she was able to lead her from that point to a point of acceptance. But this may not be the story for everybody. Different people go through this differently. Now, once they have gotten to the stage of acceptance, it's amazing. People usually at this time can begin to make plans. They become happier, they feel settled, they look comfortable, they're not as angry anymore, and just easier to work with. But as caregivers, we need to know that our residents at this time have needs. And these are some of the needs of the dying that we need to pay attention to. They need a listening ear. Sometimes they just want to talk, not necessarily looking for the answers from you. We just need to listen to them. Just listening sometimes is all they need. A caring hand to touch them and hold them during this time. And for a lot of caregivers during this time, what we do is run away. And we run away not because we want to run away, but because some of us are dealing with our own fears and our own issues about this topic. So we kind of look and then we run away. We try not to be in there, but this is the very time that they need us to hold their hands. And sometimes just holding their hands and silence may be all that it takes. They also need spiritual food. Some people may want to see their spiritual leader at this time, or want to participate in religious activities or practices. We don't need to deny them. The dying people or the dying person has a right still to his faith and to practice whatever he wants to practice. So all we do is facilitate access to these services so that it can help them transition. There are also physical needs of the dying. When people start approaching end of life, different things begin to change in them. Number one, their vision. Their vision begins to fail. So the person naturally starts to turn towards light. So what can we do as caregivers? Never have the room dark. It's very, very scary for the dying person when the room is dark. Their speech becomes slurred and it becomes very difficult to understand them. Sometimes they cannot speak at all. So we need to be able to anticipate their needs and intervene. Do not ask open-ended questions because they may not be able to respond. We need to ask yes or no questions at this time so that they can either nod or hold our hands or do something to make us understand. Hearing. This is usually the last thing to go. So we need to be very careful what we say to their hearing. During this period, we can help them by turning and repositioning them. Comfort care is what they need. And as we comfort the dying, we need to also remember their family. The family is the big part of the process of death and dying. This is a very hard time for them. Watching a loved one die is very painful. So all we need to do is just be courteous, considerate, and empathetic. Because at this time, families are usually mixed with a roller coaster of emotions, ranging from anticipating grief to after-death emotions, which would be like shock, denial, anger, guilt, regret, sadness, depression, and loneliness. Attitudes about death and dying vary. Attitudes about death and dying is usually influenced by a person's culture or their religion or their age. Some believe that life after death is free of suffering and hardship. And they also believe in the reunion with a loved one. So it may be easier for them to deal with death and dying than somebody else. Some people believe that death is a punishment. So depending on where the person is, they will respond to this death and dying process based on their belief. The journey, the lonely journey. I have been there. And many of you listening, I believe, have been there. Either you have lost a loved one, or you have seen or been with someone who has lost a loved one. The grieving process is different for everyone. And no two people grieve alike. There is no magic formula for how a person should grieve or how long they should grieve. This is different for everyone and depends on very different factors. What we need to do as caregivers is to encourage family and friends to seek professional help if needed. We cannot judge or tell a person how long they should grieve. We cannot say that a person has lost a loved one and it's been 2 weeks, it's been 3 weeks, it's been 6 months, it's been a year, and you should be over it. There is no magic formula. We need to understand. Some people are able to come out of it sooner than others. And this has to do a lot with the relationship, the culture, and other factors. I recently lost my father at the very ripe age of 94 after a very brief illness, and could relate for the first time what it meant to lose a loved one. My dad was a very active man, alert and oriented, with no cognitive decline. This man could balance his checkbook at age 93. He stood erect and did toe touch exercises every day. Preferred to use the steps when I looked for the elevator. He defied the laws of biology. He was 93 years old, trapped in a 65-year-old body. No wonder I forgot how old he was. He was my dad, my confidant, my advisor, and my friend. I always bought him a box of exclusive cigars for Christmas. He was a social smoker and enjoyed his cigars. When the grandkids said to him, "Grandpa, do you know that cigarettes or cigars can cause cancer?" he would smile and say, "Children, by the time these cigars get me, I will be ready to exit." But at 94, the cigars finally got him before he was ready to exit. My father loved life and lived it to the fullest. It was on a cold winter morning in January that the call came that my father had a sore throat and was not eating well. I thought it was probably strep and asked for him to be taken to the hospital. Within a twinkle of an eye, he went into respiratory distress. In a frantic effort to save him, I opted for a tracheostomy. Now he had a trach and couldn't eat, and so he had a gastrostomy too. The man was 94. Now don't ask me why we were doing all this. or doing all that. I am a nurse, right? Or that's what you would say. But this was my father. And when a loved one is going through this process, the family members may lose objectivity. It's very difficult. And my family, we all went through the different emotions. We did not go through every single emotion, but most of us went through the shock, the denial, the sadness, and anticipatory loneliness. We didn't go through the stages of anger, guilt, or regret. We were very thankful, but bargained for just a little more. My family suffered shock more than anything else. In a state of denial, he was flown to the Emirates for treatment, extensive tests and evaluation. We got the most feared prognosis. Dad had cancer of the throat. Chemo and radiation were not recommended. Dad had to be flown back home, and he passed away 24 hours from the time that we arrived back home. Everybody saw what we couldn't see. To all, he was a patient. To us, he was our dad. To others, he was 94 years old, for goodness sake. To us, yes, but he's still our dad. Because this is such a lonely, painful journey, as caregivers, we need to be empathetic and non-judgmental. Support the family or facilitate access to support system. I cannot thank enough the nurses at BMH, Dr. Lynn Eckert, and the staff of the City Hospital Dubai for a listening ear, a caring touch, and a soothing voice, as my role changed from caregiver to the recipient of care. My wish is that patients with serious and life-threatening illness, their families and physicians would have grace to accept that a time comes when certain medical treatments only prolong the dying process. May they also have the wisdom to know when that time comes, and in those moments of letting go, may they have the sense of being upheld by a loving God in the midst of a caring universe. And that last section was extracted from Hank Donn, a chaplain.